Hello, everyone. I'm Tom Wistrcill.
I'm JT Wistrcill.
I'm Jack Wistrcill.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of From the Couch. We're talking NBA draft. It happened last night. It was exciting. There was a lot of action. There were even a bunch of trades. ESPN couldn't follow along with all of the action going on. You saw a couple of players throwing hats away because they didn't know which team they were with. So it was crazy, but it was an exciting draft. And so it's our turn to now talk about it. And so what the guys are going to do is they're going to pick 3 winners and 3 losers of the draft. So 6 total, 3 for each of them in each category. So we're going to go back and forth, fairly rapid fire, have some comments about them, and then we'll wrap it up at the end. So
each of us have 2 teams that are winners, 2 teams that are losers, and 1 player that we think lost and 1 player that won as well.
All right. Well, cool. I'm glad we did it that way. All right. So JT is up first. Where are you going to start?
Oh, let me think. The Minnesota Timberwolves. I was absolutely ecstatic when they picked Anthony Edwards first overall. It's the guy I picked on my mock drafts, and I loved him. I thought he was the best guy available. 3-level scorer, athletic, love the build, think he can grow defensively. And, he's been through a lot of stuff, and I like banking on guys that I know have been through tough stuff and came out of it, and that's Anthony Edwards. So I'm really a believer he's going to be a great NBA player. Then later, trade back, get some extra second-round picks, and acquire Ricky Rubio, a move I really liked as well. At first, I did not like the move, but I thought about it a little more. He'll work his tail off defensively. Offensively, he'll pass it unselfishly, and a much better shooter than when he left. So I like that. And then those 2 seconds, Leandro Balamaru, 6'7", Argentinian forward, really good passer, kind of got to develop him. And Jaden McDaniels, I loved that pick. He was a guy who was a top 10 prospect coming into the year of college basketball. Fell a little bit because of some issues at Washington, but the ideal NBA body, athleticism, and showed the 3-point touch. So all I want out of him is a really good role player. Loved my Timberwolves draft, and it is a very bright future in Minnesota.
Wow. Any comments on the T-Wolves, Jack?
I think it was a good draft as well.
My only comment is I still don't think Ricky Rubio can shoot. So I'm just gonna leave it at that.
He's better.
So better. Okay,
be.
great. He went from a 4 to a 5, from 1 to 10. So that's where I'm going. Okay, Jack, you're up. What are you gonna talk about?
I think the Wizards really won this draft. I think they end up with 2 steals. I think Cassius Winston, I'm a little bit of a Michigan State fan, a little biased, but he's a true point guard, can be a great backup for John Wall or whatever happens in Washington. But the biggest thing is number 9 getting Denny Avdija. Avdija. I think that he's a great playmaker. He hustles hard. And he's the type of guy that can come into your team and just make an automatic impact. He's the type of guy that I think everybody wanted. And people were surprised that he dropped to 9, but he's a little unproven. But I think the Wizards are going to shock some people, and don't be surprised if they're a playoff team next year.
All right. Thoughts on the Wizards?
I loved Avdija coming out. I don't love the fit in Washington. I worry a little bit because early I thought he was best with the ball in his hands. That's going to be John Wall and Bradley Beal. But I think he's so competitive. He's a winner. They can make it work there. And I'm excited to see what happens there. You get some intriguing front court between him and Hachimura, their first-round pick from last year. So I like what Washington's building.
I love Cassius Winston. I think he's a warrior. I think he's a winner. And he'll never be an all-star, but I think he'll be a difference maker for the Wizards.
Yeah, I was stunned at his fall. I did not see that coming in the 50s. Great move by them.
There you go. All right, JT, number 2 winner. What do you got?
Speaking of falls, how about the Kings capitalizing on Tyrese Halliburton's fall? That was a stunner to me. Some people had this guy as high as 5. A lot of people had him as top 5 prospect, but no way you think he'd make it past the Pistons or especially the Knicks. I mean, he's known for a little bit that the high IQ he brings, the culture, the defense. Tom Thibodeau's guy, you'd think. But they passed on him too, so he falls to the Kings. And I really like the fit there. They're going to lose Bogdanovich. Buddy Hield wants out. He can come in and play the 2 guard. He can also handle the ball, play off the ball, shoot a little bit on the 3. And I just really like his ability to play next to De'Aaron Fox. I think that's what the big thing is. He didn't play a lot on the ball at Iowa State, so I think him continuing to play off the ball is going to be really good. And hopefully he can help change that crappy Kings culture around. So I love this, and I thought it was one of the steal of the first round was
there
in
you
the
go.
12.
All right, thoughts there at all?
I still think Tyrese Halliburton is not very good. I still think he's overrated. I think that wasn't surprised that he dropped because there's no ceiling. It's just a floor. So I don't think he's going to be a good player for the Kings.
All right. I like guys that are going to predict it to be high, and he's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder because he's going to try to prove people wrong. He's from Wisconsin, so I automatically like him, and we'll see where that leads. So, all right, Jack, you're up. What's next for you?
I had to go with the Mavericks here. I think Josh Green was just in a bad situation in Arizona. He's a great player. Tyrell Terry shocked everyone at Stanford. And then a very underrated prospect, Tyler Bey. This is a great defender, Tyler Bey is. Tyler Terry, a great scorer, and Josh Green's an athletic defender. I think all three of these guys have a chance to come in and come off the bench for the Mavs and help them make a run. But the Mavs have some very iffy bench role players, and they filled those slots perfectly with these draft picks.
All right. Thoughts on the Mavs?
I love the Tyrell Terry one especially. This is a guy whose stock was so high it seemed like he'd go in the teens even at one point, but falls to the first pick of the second round. Love the pickup for the Mavs. Trading Steph Curry, still bringing that shooting there, so he's another guy comes in with a chip on the shoulder too. So excited to see what he turns into.
All right. So we're next up. Back to JT. What do you got your next one?
I would have gone actually Tyrell Terry here, but since you took that, I'll go with my other player winner of the draft. And it was Precious Achiuwa, the forward out of Memphis, who actually ended up playing center for them after James Wiseman had to opt out. The Heat got him at 20, and this is the exact kind of guy that fits Heat culture perfectly. He's an athletic freak, a 6'9", he's a perfect small ball center. He's got a 7'2" wingspan. He's going to come in right away and be a great backup to Bam Adebayo. Showed a little bit of signs of a shot too, so can develop that out of him. Needs to work on a little bit mobility and space, I think, but I think that would be pretty easy for them to hone in with him. I love all of Precious's intangibles, and when the Heat get their hands on a guy like that who do such a good job of turning players like Kendrick Nunn, Duncan Robinson, these undrafted guys who have revitalized their careers there, he has all the tools to make it work, and I really think it's going to be a home run for him in Miami.
All right, good fit there. Okay, who's your winner as a player?
I have to
Who do you
go
got?
from the guy from Utah, Sam Merrill. 60th pick. He was just happy to get drafted. But I have a feeling of a little Isaiah Thomas story here. This guy's a knockdown shooter, and this is the type of guy that when he gets in your team, he's going to help right away because he isn't going to miss much. And I think that every team would have been happy to get him, but a lot of teams just were unsure, not very athletic. But Kyle Korver Jr. we could be seeing right here.
Any thoughts on Sam Merrill, JT?
I think anytime you get some shooting in the NBA, you gotta love it. So I think that's what the team's banking on. And when you get Mr. Irrelevant there, gotta hope he hits big. And I think good chances taking a swing on those shooting touch.
You can always find room for guys that can shoot. So, all right. So there's our winners. Time for the losers. So we're actually going to start with Jack on the losers end. First up is who, Jack?
So my first loser is a team that's used to losing, and that's the Pistons. I think that they picked, every single player they picked is all off potential. They didn't pick one guy, I think, that right away you know will come and help your team. Isaiah Stewart is known as a big man that can't shoot. He's not a modern-day big man at all. He's very physical, and he has a high ceiling, but this also could be the type of guy that plays very little time in the NBA. Killian Hayes was one of the guys that everyone watched overseas like, oh my gosh, this is the next man. And now everyone's like, well, we've actually never seen him play against top competition. How good is he? We're not sure. Sadiq Bey is a 3-and-D guy, but do the Pistons really need another role player? I mean, these are second-round picks, but why not go for a home run ball there? They picked high potential early, and then in the late rounds, they picked a guy that can help their team probably more than the first two picks, in my opinion. And 7, 16, and 19, you have 3 first-round picks, and you pick 3 guys that I don't think are going to help the Pistons a lot right off the bat.
All right, thoughts on the Pistons, JT?
It's not about right off the bat. It's about the long-term future, and I think that's why I really like Killian Hayes right there. I love his upside. I think he's a really good playmaker there. Stewart, it was early. I agree with that one, but I mean, he's really big. I think he can develop into something as at the center position. And Steve Bay was a top 15 pick. I think his floor is a really good role player. I think he could become a really good NBA player, all-around player there. So I personally like the Pistons, but I can see how all of them, it is a lot of potential. They could miss on all of them, or all 3 could hit.
Yeah, we'll see. Probably somewhere in between there. All right, JT, you're up. Who's your first loser?
This is a weird one because I like the player, but I hate the fit. The Hawks taking Onyeka Okongwu. So why do I hate the fit? Because they already had Clint Capella, who I think at least for the next couple of years is a better version of Okongwu. Long term, yes, Okongwu should be better than Clint Capella, but Clint Capella is only 26 and still fits in with this team's timeline. I mean, we still get 5 good years of Clint Capella. I thought they really needed a 2-guard who can man the defensive and take on that responsibilities from Trae Young, who's an awful defender. So passing on Halliburton here for me was a huge mistake for them. I really liked his ability to kind of handle the ball on offense in spurts, but really play off ball and take on the main defensive assignment. So missing out on that 2-guard here was a big loss for me for the Hawks. Okongwu will be a good player for them, but I just didn't think it was their biggest need.
What's your thought on that?
I think sometimes when you pick 6 to 5 range, you're kind of just taking the best players. So that's why I think it's just what they did. They weren't really thinking about fit. They were just thinking, this guy's a chance to be better than everyone else left on the board, so we're going to take him. So I'm interested to see how it turns out. He isn't a great fit, but he could be a great player.
All right. Okay, Jack, you're up. Number 2 loser. Who do you got?
I do think this team drafted the worst in the whole NBA. It is the Chicago Bulls. Number 4 pick, shocked just about everyone. Patrick Williams. He could be a great 3-and-D player. He's athletic. Who knows? He's very young, we all know. But he won 6-man Player of the Year award in the SEC. When's the last time a 6-man was drafted top 5? I don't know. I don't think ever, maybe. And then their 44th pick, Marko Simonovic. I don't think anyone even knew who he was before the draft started. So this is just two high potential players. Both these players are very young. I mean, we have no idea what we're going to get from either of these two players. For a Bulls team that has a lot of young players, but doesn't have many players that they know what they're going to get. So they just keep adding on these guys that are just unsure. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Bulls and those two players.
What's your thought on that?
Williams is interesting. I mean, he was by far the draft's fastest riser. Felt like he could go in that. At first, it was like, 15 to 20. Then all of a sudden, he goes top 4. His rise was unprecedented, a word that's often used to describe 2020. So I was all right with the pick just because I've kind of started to like Williams a little bit, but there's a ton of risk there, I agree. So sit behind Otto Porter for right now. And yeah, I agree with you on the second rounder. I had no idea who that guy was.
It will be interesting to see. We'll have to do a little stat work there. When's the last time that somebody that didn't start for his college team got drafted in the top 5?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty amazing, right? So we'll see what happens. His upside is big. He's also from Wisconsin, so I'll cheer for him.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we're at back to Jack, right? No, that was yours. That was yours. I'm sorry. Back to JT.
Here.
Second loser, JT.
Second loser.
Go.
The Suns for taking Jalen Smith. Now, I doubted the Suns last year when they took Cameron Johnson, and it kind of bit me because he was really good. So we'll see if this one bites me as well. But it's another thing with fit here. Long term, I like to plan for that. And they took Jalen Smith, who is never going to start for them, I don't think. I think he's their backup center long term. I don't think he's ever going to be mobile enough to play forward in the NBA. Back in the day, yeah. In today's NBA, as small ball fours, no, I think he's more of a traditional center. But he can shoot the 3 and is an athletic lob threat like that. I just don't think he can guard 4. So I would have loved to see them go with one of the guards to learn under Chris Paul. We also know Chris Paul, even though he's healthy last year, has a history of getting hurt. So getting a competent defensive point guard next to Booker would have been nice. Devin Vassell, Tyrese Maxey, Lewis out of Alabama, even all these guys were on the board, and Halliburton, of course, too. They passed on all these guys. So I really thought they should have gone defensive guard here, but instead I understand the pick of upside. Just wasn't a fan of it.
What's your thought on that one?
I do have to disagree with you here, JT. I think that DeAndre Ayton is the type of player that's very good, but in the end, he's still a big man. He's going to get subbed out a lot. So they needed a good 5 that can come off the bench and make plays for them way different than DeAndre Ayton. So I think this is a great pick. And in the end, the Suns were one of the only teams in the top 10 that had their whole starting 5 figured out.
Yes.
They knew what they're going to do. And this is a team that's a couple games outside the playoffs this year. They went 8-0 in the bubble. I mean, they're coming off a strong run. They added Chris Paul. I think this is a good pick for their bench, and this could maybe even elevate their team to the playoffs. Who knows?
All right. We'll see what happens there. Okay, last one, Jack.
Coming back to the hometown, Utah, the player, Aduke Azubuike. I really think that this was one of the worst picks in the draft as well. Rudy Gobert starting at center. So you're picking a first-round guy that you know is going to come off the bench. This is Rudy Gobert and Tony Bradley again. We have 3 centers that all they can do is block shots and dunk. None of them can score in the post. Aduke Azubuike, sure, he can dunk on people in college, but he's not going to be dunking on NBA centers. So you have 3 centers with no mobility. They can't guard outside. None of them can shoot. I mean, it's like the Jazz don't want to get better at the wing position. Joe Ingles is not going to be it for much longer. I just don't understand this pick at all.
All right. What are your thoughts on the Jazz pick there?
I was okay with it, especially because they traded Tony Bradley. I see the upside there, so they went for that. I was interested you critique them drafting a backup because to me that's what the Suns did at 10. But you like that move, so why did you like the Jalen Smith pick? Because I feel like they drafted a backup. Do you not?
The Jazz or the Suns?
The Suns.
The Suns did draft it. The Suns are going to be playoff ready next year. The Jazz are playoff ready to get swept next year. That's just how it is for you Jazz fans. I'm sorry.
I think about my sleeper in the draft was Malachi Flynn.
Yes, he was.
That should have been the Jazz pick right there. Played both positions, great defender, smart guy. Could have been the future for them back at point guard there. So that was just my thought there on the last one. So all right, last one, JT. Who you got? Who's your loser?
RJ Hampton. And it's not for where he ended up because we see this all the time. These guards go to Denver and have a ton of success, so he'll be good. But he went 24th overall. He was a top 5 prospect by almost everyone coming into the season. He decides to go over to Australia. Him and LaMelo were the overseas guys. LiAngelo even was an overseas guy, if you go back to that. And that's my trend for this pick. Going overseas doesn't work for the NBA draft. We're not going to see players do it anymore. Didn't work for, maybe if LaMelo stayed, he could have gone number 1. I really think if Hampton stayed and went to Kansas, where he should have gone, I think if he could do it again, would have gone, he would have been a top 10 pick. He didn't really excel over there. I think it's harder when you're playing against grown men like he was in Australia. So he struggled a little bit, but he still got 6'5", quick point guard, so shooting guard maybe. I really like his upside still. I just think he fell because he went over there and struggled a little bit. And that's why it'll be interesting to see. Guys are going to start going the G League route. We're seeing that now become a thing. The G League team's going to have some really good players on it next year. But I think the overseas experiment was a failure, and RJ Hampton was a casualty of it.
Yep, good point. What do you think about
I
RJ?
agree with you, except it's no excuse to say you're playing against grown men because it just happened to be the number 3 pick went to go play with grown men and dominated the whole league in 10 games. So I don't think that's a good excuse for RJ Hampton to say he wasn't doing so good against grown men. I mean, LaMelo Ball is not very strong either. Skinny, lackadaisical on defense, and he's dominating these guys over there. So
we saw quite a bit of RJ Hampton because we lived in Texas. We got to see him in that. To me, what I see is I see somebody that the game came pretty easy to him. He was faster, quicker, more athletic, better shooter than everybody he's ever played against in his life until he got to Australia. And he was playing against grown men. And he didn't show off the way he could have because he was playing against 25-year-olds, right? When he should have been playing against 18 to 20-year-olds at Kansas. So physically, he'd have done better there. So I think that now, I think he ended up in a good spot.
Yes.
So I don't think it matters where he got drafted. But it doesn't surprise me that he had some struggles there along the way. What was your closing thought there?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you guys just said. I think that's kind of why he fell. And it's RJ Hampton. He's in a great spot now, like we said. Malik Beasley's gone. We'll see him. I think him and Will Barton, they're going to battle. He's going to have to battle for shots. There's a lot of guys on Denver who can shoot, but we got an unselfish point guard we know who's actually their center in Jokic. So I think he'll succeed there. But like I said, my biggest takeaway from that is just the overseas route did not work for these guys. Were there any other reasons you thought RJ didn't work overseas?
No, just physicality. He wasn't ready.
So obviously the draft was interesting, because there wasn't a number 1 pick that was a slam dunk. There's no Anthony Davis in this draft. There's no Zion in this draft. So very interesting to see as we look forward into this to see what happens. So
don't talk too bad about the number 1 pick over here.
There wasn't an Anthony Davis, but there was an Anthony Edwards.
There was an Anthony Edwards, so that's great. Well, we thank you for joining us here as we talk about the NBA draft, and we look forward to having you watch us again on another edition of From the Couch. We'll see you next time.